Hi, I'm Coach Amber, and welcome to the Meet RX Success Story podcast. And today we have Stefania with us. Welcome, Stefania.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
So, Stefania, tell us, before you started your meat-based diet, were you having any health issues?
Oh, yes, loads. I was a vegetarian for 17 years. And unbeknown to me, I had some genes that made me more predisposed for something like celiac disease. Obviously, a vegetarian diet was all based on lots of soy, a lot of pasta, a lot of grains, a lot of vegetables and fruits and other kinds of stuff. So 17 years of that. And I ended up developing some severe symptoms. Ended up in A&E for 3 times in 3 weeks. And eventually with excruciating stomach cramps. And eventually they decided that I needed to go and see a gastroenterologist to find out what the problem was. There was a major problem with my gut. And that's when they diagnosed celiac disease, which of course, one of the major problems is gluten, and being Italian, being raised on pizza and pasta doesn't help, obviously. And vegetarian doesn't help either, obviously. So but in addition to that, the thing I didn't know at the time is I developed a lump on my throat, which turned out to be a lump on the thyroid. In those days, they didn't ask many questions. They just took the whole thing out, including the thyroid. They decided just to pull 80% of my thyroid out, and they put me on levothyroxine, which is the medication they give in the UK, T4 medication replacement. I was on that for about 10 years. I started 100 micrograms and I had to increase all the time, increase until I ended up having 225 micrograms a day, which is quite a high dose. I was feeling, my blood test showed I was fine. I was feeling exhausted, and I was told it's all in your head, get used to that, that's how you feel with the thyroid, and that's just the rest of your life. And obviously I wasn't happy with that. I then decided, because I was training at the time, doing as a personal trainer, obviously I got involved a lot more into training in the gym, and I never had energy. I hit a spot where I seemed to become intolerant to everything I was eating. Rice, pasta, everything I was eating on a vegetarian diet, I started becoming very intolerant to, and I was advised to go on a vegan diet. So I basically removed the only animal product I had at the time, which was dairy. I removed that from my diet, and I was left with these vegan shakes to try to get some protein in there, which of course were soy-based. I felt awful. I had to do it for 6 months just to try to get rid of these intolerances I built eating the same food. And I lost a lot of weight. I dropped tons of weight. I dropped tons of muscle, and I had no energy at all. I felt drained from the inside out. Then I went back on a vegetarian diet, and I found out then I had Hashimoto. So the thyroid goiter that they'd removed was due to Hashimoto, which in the process had destroyed the other thyroid glands. So I'm currently left with just 20% on one thyroid gland, as opposed to having 2 fully functioning thyroid glands. And at that point, I heard about keto, and I was so fed up with everything that was going on, with the feeling rubbish. So I heard about keto. I said it's good for autoimmune conditions. So I said I got 2 of them. Let's try with this. And that's when I went into keto. That was 10 years ago, and I stayed on keto for 7 years, which did a lot of good for me. I had to when I was in keto, introduce fish, because I decided the vegetarian thing was not working for me. I tried to introduce fish, and I started feeling a lot better. I mean, the strength, I've forgotten what it felt like to have a bit of, proper animal proteins in there. And I started feeling a lot better. I could train better in the gym, but I was still getting this stomach discomfort. I was struggling with the fat ratios are very high on keto, and I was struggling with those ones, with my body can't tolerate too high fat, unfortunately. Otherwise, I had to go visit the toilet this often with the fat. And then I started noticing I was having problems. I was having a lot of vegetables, of course, a lot of broccoli, cauliflower, your high fiber vegetables. And that was causing havoc with my gut, absolute havoc. I was getting stomach aches again. I was struggling to lose weight. I can maintain a good body composition. I didn't feel 100%. So I heard ShawnBaker at the time. He was launching the very first N=1, the 90-day carnivore. And I thought, I didn't eat meat at the time. I was still not eating meat. And I thought, okay. So let me introduce meat first and see what happens, because I didn't know how my body would cope with meat. I hadn't eaten it in, over 17 years. So I'd meat the first time, and let's just say blocked me for 4 days. I could not go to the toilet for 4 days. My body did not know what had happened. Clearly wasn't used to deal with meat. But after that, I got into the habit of doing it. So I was still keto at the time, started eating meat, felt better with it, and I decided to take the jump and do the N=1 thing. And I went super strict, super strict. I even cut out coffee, which for me is, I was raised on espresso, so that was the hardest thing actually. And it was incredible because I remember telling my husband, I said, my God, is there somebody turned the power on? It was like somebody putting me on a Duracell battery, all of a sudden I can go forever. The strength, the energy, and even the difference in the gym was massive. What I could lift in the gym, and I couldn't believe my stomach was happy. All the problem I was having, the gut problems, I even was having at some point some rash reaction, skin rashes, all of that went completely. And that was 3 years ago. And I was supposed to be 90 days trial. I stayed on that. The only thing I added back in was coffee. I can't stay without my espresso. That is the one thing I have to have, Otherwise, I just stayed on that ever since. 3 years, not wavered. It's been brilliant, absolutely brilliant thing.
That's awesome. So when you first started going carnivore, what did you add back in, and what does a typical day look like for you as far as food goes?
Well, first of all, I had to start getting used to all the meats again, which for me was a big problem, having been vegetarian for 17 years. So the first time I had some meat, I kept it very low. So I kept low fat. So I went for chicken, for the white meat. But then I found out straight away that wasn't filling me up at all. So when I went carnivore, I was playing with salmon, beef, and chicken. And, having a mix of the three in one plate. Literally, I was mixing those 3 types of things in one single meal. Everybody was looking at me like I was nuts, but I just want to try different things. Now, I found out the chicken, all the white meat is just pointless. I could have a whole roast chicken from a rotisserie with the skin and everything, a whole thing by myself. And an hour later I was hungry. And I said, what the hell is going on? This is ridiculous. It's a lot of calories, So that didn't work. I also find out, I try some, cod and stuff like that, all the lean fish. Again, I will have to eat literally a whole school of fish for me to be full on that one. It just doesn't work for me. And I found that the thing that works the best for me, the one I have all the time, is actually beef. I try steak. I've got to say, my issue, I love steak, but I don't like the fat in steaks. It's just the elasticity of the fat, the consistency of that. I can't eat it. So I have to rely on beef, ground beef, which I get, from the supermarkets. We're fairly lucky in the UK. We got Irish and Scottish beef, which is mainly grass-fed, and it is at reasonable prices. So I found either every single day. So that's my staple. And I've added some organ meats, because that's the one thing that with me, I was worried at the beginning what's going to happen. I'm not going to have enough vitamins, enough minerals, and everything. And with autoimmune, I was always very aware. With celiac disease, you can only absorb about half of the nutrients compared to a normal person. And I was worried I will end up with deficiencies. So I took the plunge and I tried liver. Well, I almost puked the first time. I cannot stand the taste. It's disgusting, absolutely disgusting. But I tried different livers, and I found that it's surprisingly, lamb's liver doesn't taste very much. Now, beef liver, calf liver, all the type of liver, extremely strong in taste, and, smell and taste. Lamb's liver actually tastes almost nothing. And what I do, I cut it in tiny little pieces, and I cook it with my mincemeat. So it's mixed with the mincemeat, and then that works perfectly because you can't taste it that much. And I can deal with that. So and eggs. So I love eggs. So my main meals will be breakfast will be typically 7 eggs, yolk and a lot. Yeah, absolutely everything. And then for lunch, I normally have about 650 grams of ground beef, and alternate it. Well, 3 times a week, I'll add 100 grams of liver to that, lamb's liver. And that's it. I'm quite happy with that. And then I'll have coffee. I mean, my espresso. I have to have my espresso. That's a must. Absolutely a must. And I find I'm quite happy with that. Absolutely happy with that. The only thing I changed since my very first carnivore days is I decided to go back to my ancestry. I'm Italian, and I was raised with coffee, but I also was raised with olive oil. And I decided to give my body a chance with some olive oil, put olive oil back in my diet. And I've done that because I felt I needed to have a bit of a mix of different type of fats. There's a lot of saturated fats, obviously, and omega-3s as well in meat. And there's not much monounsaturated fat. And I think olive oil is, for being Italian, that's what I was raised with. So I tried it and I didn't have any reaction. So I was quite happy to reintroduce it, as part of my normal routine. I've been fine ever since. So I've been adjusting it as I go along. And I play around with the fat to protein ratios, depending on what I want to do. It's all based on my goals, my fitness goals. So if I want to cut, then I'll have typically 2 to 1 protein to fat in grams. So very, very high protein. If I want to bulk, I'll go to 1 to 1. That's the most I will do, 1 gram of protein to 1 gram of fat, because I cannot tolerate high levels of fat. I could not do 80% fat. I would be disaster pants. Literally, my body cannot tolerate too much fat. So I just play around depending on whether I'm building muscle, trying to bulk, or a bit higher fat to give me more energy. Or if I want to cut, then I bring lower fat, higher protein. But I find, I'm craving now. All I crave is minced beef and eggs. I love eggs. I could eat. I've even bought an oyster egg. I had the whole thing in one sitting. An oyster egg is the equivalent of about 15 eggs, hen eggs. I've had the whole thing in one sitting. This is how much I crave them. Eggs and beef. That's it. That's it. I don't crave liver. I'm not going to say I'm going to crave liver because I don't crave liver at all. I just add it in there to help me, to have a balanced diet. But beef, actually, I've had the same meals now for years, and I'm not fed up with it. People say, how can you eat the same thing every single day? I'm actually craving it. And it's not giving me intolerances either. That's the difference with the vegetarian diet. Eating the same meals, the same food all the time, I ended up with intolerances to grains, to soy, to cheese, to dairy, even eggs. I could not eat eggs when I was vegetarian and ketogenic because I was getting a reaction from eggs. Since becoming carnivore, it's the opposite. I can have as many eggs as I want. I've had no skin reaction, nothing. So it's got to be good. That's the way I look at it anyway. It can't be bad.
So did you have any other transitional issues besides constipation?
No, that was the only one. I didn't. The constipation, I think, was mainly down to the fact that my body didn't add any meat for 17 years. Because remember, before that, when I was raised on meat in Italy, they eat a lot of pork. Yeah, so everything is meat in Italy. So I never had a problem with meat, digesting meat. But because I've been 17 years vegetarian, as soon as they introduced it, must have been a massive shock to my system because protein is hard to digest anyway. And having huge amount of protein like that all of a sudden, although it was, probably was the worst one, I think, because I had the leanest possible protein, having chicken and turkey to begin with, thinking that's easier to digest. Probably it's not, because you've got more protein. So, but no, that was the major, issue was that. And then, but that resolved after 4 days. As soon as I managed to go back to, open my bowel, then it was fine. And now I'm absolutely fine. So I go through periods, with the carnivore diet, you don't need to open your bowels every day, thankfully, So and there's no constipation. I haven't been constipated. And, with underactive thyroid, constipation is a big problem. People who've got underactive thyroid, they suffer constipation because everything slows down. So constipation is a big problem. And I used to have that all the time when I was vegetarian. I even had to go to a few places to help clear it out, and never had that in carnivore diet. Never had that, and it's made a massive difference on my thyroid medication. I mean, I was on 225 micrograms a day before I went keto. On keto, I started having to reduce that. On carnivore, I went all the way down to 100 microgram a day, and that's with just 20% of one thyroid gland left in total. That is really low. And at the moment, the indication from the last blood test indications that I might need to decrease it further a little bit. I will see. But that is, for me, is massive because I understand that if you don't eat carbohydrates or eat very little, because of the eggs do have some carbohydrates, so that's liver. But if you don't eat lots of carbohydrate, then there's less need for T3 and T4 anyway. So then your body doesn't need quite as much. But for me, it's like, it's halved my thyroid medication. So that means my body's happier, and I've got, I've been fine, absolutely fine since I've been a carnivore. And I can't see myself getting bored with it because after 3 years of eating the same thing, I'm still eating the same thing every time. And, surely by now I should have got bored, but I haven't. And I feel great, walks well in the gym. So I can't, it's perfect.
Okay, so you mentioned a lot of your benefits that you've noticed, the improvements already, but is there anything that you haven't mentioned so far that you noticed that have improved? Specifically what you mentioned when you talked about your life before meat-based.
Oh, well, for me, one of the biggest changes for me, probably my relationship with food as well. I've had, when I was vegetarian and all through my youth, I've had really bad relationship with the food. I used to be the fat one in the household, although I wasn't really, really fat. I was always, a UK size 14 when I was, younger, which is chubby, it's overweight. It's not super fat, but it's overweight. And I've always had relationship with food where I used to turn to food if I was happy, if I was sad, if I was stressed, if I was bored, any emotion will turn into food. I even suffered from anorexia and bulimia, so twice, and that was a big problem for me because everything was about food. Everything was around food. That was my control method, if you like. And even when I was keto, I had some moments where I went overboard. So I couldn't allow myself a cheat day because if I cheat day, it will turn into cheat week or turn into binge, so I couldn't do that. With carnivore, that's the one thing that has changed because with carnivore, my cheat day will be having more food. Yeah, but it's meat. So instead of having just my 600 grams of meat, I'll have, a kilo of meat, or I'll have 12 eggs, I've actually bought recently, I found a farm in the UK that they do Wagyu meat and Wagyu beef, and they do these gorgeous burgers, Wagyu beef, that in boxes are quite cheap actually, and they just put salt and pepper inside of them. So there's nothing else, no herbs or anything like that, because I must be very careful with herbs and stuff like that. I do react to a lot of stuff at the moment. And that would be my treat. Wagyu tastes gorgeous, but I'll have like 4 burgers at once, so it's quite big, it's about 500 grams of meat, in one sitting, and it's quite high fat, Wagyu beef. And I use that to suit myself. So, and that will be my treat. So it doesn't make me feel guilty because I know it's good stuff. So, I don't have any, I used to be a sweet tooth. I used to have craving. I could not stay without sugar. at all. Whether it was in the form of sweets, whether it was chocolate was it was awful. Chocolate, especially, it wasn't just a question of the time of the month. I was just any reason to have chocolate. I used to eat a lot of chocolate. And when I got pregnant with my son, I used to have 5 Mars bars a day. And it had to be the big king size ones. It wasn't even the normal one. And that got me into a habit of eating chocolate every single day. And that was awful. And when I went keto and I gave up the chocolate, but there was still sweet stuff because I was still having dairy at the time. I'm not having any dairy now because I totally react to them at the moment. And I used to have things like mascarpone cheese, which is still a bit sweet, cream, double cream, that kind of stuff. And that kept my cravings going. It wasn't helping me. When I went to Carnivore, all that was gone, especially because I was doing a 90-day, N=1 experiment. And I want to be super strict because I didn't want to screw up the figures for everybody else, so I want to be super strict. I say, if I put down only having this, I'm only having this. And because I cut out sugars, now when I crave something, my cravings are for, again, one thing that I can't have at the moment, which is cheese. That my cheese is turned into, it's my craving. But I don't have cheese anymore. I used to be able to have cheese at the beginning. I don't have anymore because I've got an issue with the milk protein. So whey casein, as a celiac, that's a problem that you tend to have. So I stopped having cheese completely, and now the cravings for the cheese are gone. So again, cheese has got lots of carbohydrates. It's very addictive. It's almost as bad as sugar. And I've managed now to completely get rid of it, but eliminating it completely. That's the only way. That's the only way to do it. But I'm surprised that I don't crave sugars, because that was always, for years and years and years, 20, 30 years of my life, it was sugar. I take sugar every single day. But on the carnivore diet, the cravings go. They completely go. And you don't need it at all. And I say now, when I crave, if I want something else, eggs, I crave more eggs than anything. So if I want to, I come home and I'm hungry and I want to have something, I'll just make myself some eggs, and I've got no problem having eggs. And, I don't believe there's an issue with cholesterol or any of that stuff, because my cholesterol is perfect, and I check myself regularly. So, and if my doctor knew I was eating minimum 7 eggs a day, sometimes 12 eggs a day, he'll have a heart attack himself, I'll leave. He'll have a heart attack just listening to me.
Well, Stefania, it has been a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much for sharing your success stories. And I'm going to have to agree with you about your doctor, probably so.
He will ever, but listen, I stopped listening to the doctors here. It's pointless, it's until they change the guidelines here, like you guys in America, we got the same problem, obesity, diabetes is all down to the guidelines. Until they change them, there's no point discussing any diet with the doctor, because you don't know anyway. So just do what works for you. And, carnivore diet is brilliant. It's helping a lot of people, and just people on the shoot side.
Perfect. Love it. Well, thank you, Stefania, and you have a wonderful day.
Thank you very much. You too.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye. Bye.